My name is Christine, and I'm a 30-year-old part-time housewife. My husband Vin and I have been married for 6 months, and I think we have a very nice relationship as a couple. However, no one is perfect, and there's something about my husband that bothers me enough that I feel like I need to talk to someone about it. That is that he does not get along with my parent-in-laws, which are indeed his own parents. I know it's common for people to not get along with some members of their family, and if Vin's case wasn't different, I don't think it would pose me a big problem. All I'd have to do is to help them get along enough every once in a while, or something like that. But, unfortunately, his case is different indeed, all because of the way he hates them. It's very unusual, and quite frankly concerning. When we were still dating, before we got married, we sometimes talked about our home environments. Vin told me,
I only have a younger brother. My parents passed away early, actually.
It was a tragic thing to know, but the more details I asked out of him, the more I realized how much stranger the situation really was for him. Basically, he never got along well with parents at all, and we considered them dead to him, which is why he claims his own family is his younger brother. I couldn't understand why he hated his parents so much. I'd wanted to say hi to his parents ever since we started dating, but he always refused, very adamantly. He just said he didn't want to get involved, and never elaborated further. And when we got engaged to be married, I was merely introduced at the entrance of my parent-in-law's house, and after that, I can't say there were more than 5 minutes of conversation before Vin grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the house to the car. When my parent-in-laws saw me, they had very soft expressions on their faces, and I thought they must be very nice people. A few weeks later, my husband's brother, Logan, came to visit us with his wife, Chandalisa. Vin and Logan weren't on terms as bad as Vin and his parents, but because they had not yet had the memo that we got married, so they were very considerate, and took the trouble to pay us a visit.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry to bother you at such an hour.
Unlike my husband, Logan had a polite manner and used very clean language, but his wife was perhaps more like a street-smart gal because, "Don't mind if I do, y'all. Scorcher day, isn't it?" Such was her attitude. In a nutshell, and considering this from an optimistic perspective, she's good at shortening the cold distance between strangers. From a pessimistic perspective, however, she was frankly insane in my eyes. The wife of my brother-in-law, who had this powerful, unique husky voice, I could literally feel my water molecules in my body vibrate because of her voice. After we talked about to some extent, perhaps Vin and Chandalisa hit it off, because they switched on the hockey to some ice hockey, and were getting more and more excited every minute. Scattered on the table was a trash heap of sweet wrappers, potato chip bags, and empty glasses that once contained Mountain Dew. Logan kindly helped me clean up the mess. This was a great opportunity to ask him about the relationship between Vin and his parents. I took the chance and asked Logan in a quiet voice. According to him, my husband had always been rebellious against his parents, and he often got himself in trouble with them for a long time. Before I married him, he'd apparently borrowed money from a consumer loan company multiple times, until he'd borrow so much more than what he could pay back to himself. That he borrowed more money than he could pay back by himself. When he tried to borrow money from his parents, they refused to help him, and instead told him to take care of it himself. His attitude towards his parents is basically him holding a grudge. Logan mentioned that Vin said he had repaid the money, but even his own brother felt a little unsure about it. Why did Vin borrow so much money?
You know my brother is pretty enthusiastic about cars, right? From what I heard from him, he spent a lot of this money on cars.
Oh, so that's what this is about. He's still just downright furious Mr. and Mrs. Windsor refused to help him pay back the money he borrowed.
Yes, that's right.
I was a little relieved by then. I was relieved because I now knew that Vin was the problem, and not his parents who were so kind to me. I actually wanted to have a wedding, but Vin was against the idea because he didn't want to invite Mr. and Mrs. Windsor. Ever since then, I've been wondering why he was so unfair to his own parents, and what made him believe they would ruin our wedding. Believe me, when I tell you I never wanted to ask you personally, it's just that he never offered an answer that was satisfactory.
Ah, so that's why you asked me. Well, that makes sense, I guess.
Yep, that's the whole story. I don't want a wedding now, but I do hope he'll get along with his parents. They've been so good to me, and it pains me to see my own husband be on such bad terms with them.
You know, to be honest, I don't think that'll ever be possible. But I'll let them know how you feel about their situation and hopefully convince them to try harder. I promise.
Are you sure? Thank you so much. Then, the four of us went on chatting the rest of the afternoon. Right after they left in the evening, my husband came to me with an angry look on his face.
Did you do something to my brother?
I only told him that I wished you would be on better terms with your parents.
I thought I told you to never do anything rash. Just before he went on his merry way, Logan pulled me aside and told me to think about you too. If you hadn't said anything to him, things wouldn't be so damn complicated right now. You're making things difficult again, and it's honestly pissing me off.
That's not true. Logan told me that all of the tension between you and your parents is basically of your grudge against them. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Logan confirmed it. When I said those words, my husband's expression changed. Earlier, he donned an expression that seemed to suggest something was a pain in the ass to him, but that face turned into one of complete fury.
Logan knows nothing, and I don't know what you think you know, but you don't meddle in my family situation, alright? Stay out of it.
That's all he ever said before he disappeared into the house. Why in the world do you hate your own parents so much, Vin? Why is it that the cause of this whole situation is you and only you, and yet you still act so self-centered? I couldn't understand then, and I was positive that even if an expert tried to explain, I would never understand. After that day, unfortunately, conversations with my husband became so scarce that it became a limit to something related to keep life going. Such as when he was coming home from work, or that he wanted a beer from the fridge. Of course, the word wedding was never mentioned, and to make matters worse, his behavior has gotten so much stranger lately. Perhaps his work kept him pretty busy, because he wasn't at home as much as he used to be, and even on his days off, he was never home. When I ask him where he goes, he doesn't answer. I had absolutely no idea where he goes off to, and it's like he's deliberately making so that he doesn't have to spend time with me. I know it sounds pretty drastic, but I began to suspect my husband was cheating on me. But, hear me out, I have a good reason. There were just too many secrets. I didn't feel like I had a choice but to suspect him of foul play. When he came home one day, I decided to ask him, "You've been working a lot of extra hours lately, and I know you don't work on your days off, so where do you go?"
Why do you care? I go wherever I feel like going. At least I come home at the end of the day, right?
That's not good enough, honey. We're married, and I feel like there's a lot of secrets between us. It feels wrong. Just because you come home every day doesn't mean everything's okay.
So, what? You're having doubts about me?
You can't blame me. I never have any idea what you're doing, and you never answer me when I ask you.
Washing cars.
What?
I wash my cars whenever I can spare enough time, and once they're clean and beautiful, I go for a drive afterwards.
Was what he told me. Well, my husband does love cars, and knowing this, anyone could understand if he says that's why he's always elsewhere during the day. Then I want to go with you next time. I have to wash my car because it's getting dirty in any case.
You can put your car through an automatic car wash, no? Because those machines aren't too catered to washing the cars I have. I have to wash each one by hand.
Then why don't you wash my car too? I can help you.
I'm not gonna do that.
I don't know why, but he refused my offer of going with him. I was frustrated, but I couldn't press the issue any farther. I couldn't accuse him he was doing something else, nor could I accuse him of having an affair. Since I didn't have any evidence that supported the possibility of Vin having an affair. Plus, a normal housewife with a normal husband would still pursue. because it was an excuse too far-fetched to believe. But when it comes to Vin, he loves cars so much that telling me he washes them by hand as often as he can and takes them out for drives afterwards sounds like a very solid truth. To be honest, he even went to borrow money to tinker with cars after all. On his next day off, I woke up and found no sign of him. I assumed he must have gone to where he kept his cars, eager to give the next one a scrub and a shine. I got out of bed, ate breakfast, watched a bit of TV, and started cleaning the house. That's when I got a call from my brother-in-law. I thought it was unusual for him to call me, but he did mention he wanted to deliver a souvenir from a little trip he took with his colleagues from work.
Hello, Christine. Is Vin there? Is he around?
Vin? He's out right now and he's not at home. For some reason, he asked me if my husband was home. I thought it was because it would be awkward if my husband wasn't home. But then...
Good. I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Will that be all right?
I didn't know why he asked me that question about Vin in the first place. 10 minutes and a few passed, and I heard the doorbell intercom ring. When I answered, it was Logan. I let him inside, and after he made himself comfortable, he reached into his backpack and brought out what appeared a small lamp in the shape of a pineapple. He really had brought us a gift back from his trip. Oh, this is so nice. Thanks for the souvenir. Where did you go on your trip?
Hawaii.
Oh, wow. How cute. A trip to Hawaii at this age. I haven't been there since my graduation trip after college. I was making small talk, but as we were talking, I noticed something strange about him. He was talking normally before, but he suddenly started to cower, it seemed, and he was slow to respond. When I called out to him, his response was incomprehensible. He slurred his words beyond recognition, so I quickly called an ambulance. I accompanied him in the ambulance, and we headed to the hospital. After being taken to the hospital, Logan was examined. The doctor informed me that he was just suffering from a strong case of jet lag, and that the trip had fatigued him quite a bit. I was relieved about two things. One, that he didn't suddenly become exhausted while he was at the wheel, and two, that the cause wasn't a serious illness. The drive to my place probably caused his condition to deteriorate further. Moreover, Logan himself said,
I knew I was under the influence of jet lag, but I still went back to work the day after I returned. I guess that was why the fatigue accumulated a lot more, and why I'm in this mess right now. I should have rested for a few days before going back to work.
Needless to say, travel tires you out, for real, and a few days of rest and relaxation before going back to work or school was always the best thing to do. I felt relieved and reassured that everything was going to be fine, but then I realized I had forgotten something important. I had forgotten to call my husband and inform him his brother was in the hospital. I realized how one can't afford to think of other things at all when someone collapses in front of you. I whip out my phone. I dial my husband's number. Once, twice, 3 times. He didn't pick up the phone at all, even after 4 attempts. Finally, on the 5th attempt, I got through to him.
What the hell do you want?
Where are you now?
You called me 5 freaking times just to ask me something stupid like that?
No, I didn't.
What the frick? Just tell me what this is all about.
Answer my question first. Where are you right now?
Alright, fine. You win. To tell you the truth, I'm at a cafe talking to Logan. I had something I want to discuss with him, okay? That should be enough of an explanation. Now don't call me again, please. I'll be home for dinner tonight. Hanging up now.
Shocked by my husband's lie, I kept the phone to my ear long after he hung up. Never before in my whole life was I so stunned. There was something else that was bothering me. I heard a woman's voice in the background. That voice probably belonged to Chandalisa, the wife of my brother-in-law. Her voice was very unique, and even through some amount of blurred ambiguity, that accented husky voice made me sure that Vin was having an affair with Chandalisa. I glanced at Logan and discovered him smiling bitterly.
Perhaps you finally noticed what's going on here. If you think you're sure Vin was with my wife, you're not alone, Christine.
I guess you can imagine how surprised I was when he said those words. Wait, did you know already?
Yes, I did. You remember we visited your house not too long ago, right? Well, I noticed they seemed to hit it off then, and I'm pretty positive that's where their relationship started.
I found the fact that Logan was talking so calmly astonishing. How can you be so calm? Aren't you devastated that the woman you love is being unfaithful to you?
I've known about the affair since the beginning anyway.
My brother-in-law elaborated, telling me that while he and I were talking about Vin and his situation with my parents that day, they had exchanged contact information as they were enjoying the hockey game, and they'd been having an affair ever since. Logan was suspicious when he noticed his wife was not coming home until late at night. One look at her cell phone confirmed everything, because he found a photo with his brother. He then immediately hired a detective agency to look into the matter, and it didn't take long before enough evidence was accumulated to confirm his suspicions. You're not getting a divorce?
I was planning on divorcing her when the time was right. I was actually going to tell you, Christine, but quite frankly, it's been hard to tell you. I'm one of those people who hates to go behind someone's back and expose them for something, even if the crime's pretty huge like this.
I understand, but I still think you should have told me anyway. I felt ashamed that I didn't realize it earlier, and I was shocked by the fact that my husband really was cheating on me. Perhaps Logan also wanted to spare me from experiencing this rush of negativity. I felt bad saying that he should have told me anyway.
What about you, Christine? Are you thinking about getting a divorce?
Yes, I am. I can't be together with an unfaithful bastard.
I already have plenty of evidence against her case, so you need not worry about any legal procedures. Let's proceed with the claims for alimony and make them pay well for what they did to us.
Logan then displayed a mischievous smile. He also rubbed his hands ominously, but I didn't know if it was intended to be funny.
To tell you the truth, my wife still thinks I'm on vacation traveling to Hawaii.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
I knew she was going to see Vin while I was gone, so I lied to her. I lied to prepare for the divorce and get revenge.
That's amazing. You've been planning this for a long time.
And you only found out about it today, Christine. I'm not surprised you're not prepared at all.
Thanks for supporting me, Logan. I really appreciate it, especially during these dark times. But now that you mention it, it makes sense.
What does?
My husband said he's leaving tomorrow for a business trip overnight. Yes, that's right. It just so happens that he's going on a business trip, even though he basically never goes on any at all. My best guess at that point was that he was going on a trip with his new girlfriend. And it seemed my brother-in-law was thinking exactly the same thing. I couldn't forgive them both for thinking so low of me, thinking that I would never find out about their affair. Then came the doctor, who told us that Logan could go back home to rest after the IV was finished. We made our way back home by taxi, hopped into his car, and made our way to my parent-in-law's house. They were surprised to see me stopping by with Logan of all people, but the surprise quickly turned into joy, and they kindly let us inside. As we helped ourselves to some coffee and donuts, we explained that we discovered the cheating. Needless to say, they were astonished, repeating that they just could not believe it. So Logan then showed them the evidence that the detective agency had prepared. 10 seconds later, they were bowing their heads down to me in deep, heart-wrenchingly sincere apologies. Mrs. Windsor was crying. I quickly and kindly assured them they were not to blame. It was my husband's fault, and Chandelisa's.
Mom, Dad, please don't apologize. You really did nothing wrong at all. It's all Vin and that backstabbing wife of mine.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Windsor, Mrs. Windsor. Please raise your heads.
I'm thinking about getting a divorce, and so is Christine. I suppose you two also think this is the best thing to do with the truth in mind. But I have a favor to ask you.
What Logan asked his parents was that in the event Vin comes to them for help, that they don't offer any help at all. He asked them not to give any support for alimony or anything else. I agreed with his request, considering the weight of their crime. Vin and Chandelisa alone should be responsible and pay accordingly. I also requested my parent-in-laws what Logan asked, and they agreed. I then contacted my husband, while my brother-in-law contacted his wife. Neither of them answered the calls the first time, so we called again and again. When Vin finally answered, he did not seem happy.
What the hell is wrong with you? What the frick do you want this time?
Hey, where are you?
Oh my freaking god, you're so annoying. Why do you keep asking me where I am? Why do you freaking care so much?
Because I want to talk to you about something. It's important.
I'm at a shopping mall with Logan right now. We're actually thinking about seeing a movie. Are you freaking happy now?
If you really were with your brother, I'd be more than happy with that answer of yours. But let's be honest, you're not with your brother, are you? No, I'm pretty sure you're with his wife. And I'm also pretty sure you aren't even shopping. You're in a hotel bathroom right now talking to your wife on the phone while another woman lies in bed just waiting for you to take places with her tonight. Good thing I was alone when I said that. That would have hurt Logan for sure. Perhaps I'd hit the nail on the head because there was a long awkward silence before Vin answered with a voice that sounded like a donkey.
What are you talking about? Of course I'm not with Chandeliza.
It was obvious that he was upset. I could tell from his heavy breathing. And also, over the phone, I could hear the characteristic voice just beckoning him to come back into the room. I can hear her voice in the background, you know.
You hear that kind of voice everywhere. It doesn't mean I'm in a hotel room right now.
No, you don't hear that kind of voice anywhere around here, to be honest. But anyway, I see you're trying to convince me otherwise, but it's too late. I know everything. I already know what you're doing, and you can't change my mind. Divorce me, please.
Divorce? Now hold on a second, that's pretty dramatic all of a sudden.
I have no idea why I would be dramatic, honestly. No matter how hard I try to tell him I really want a divorce, he doesn't understand. Whether he truly doesn't, or rather doesn't want to, is up for speculation.
I only had a little fling with my brother's wife. It doesn't mean it's serious. It's only just me letting my inner man run a little free, you know?
If you don't think it's serious, then why are you still with her right now? I can't understand. And why would you go to the trouble of having a relationship with your brother's wife of all people?
Because she thinks I'm cool and handsome. That's why.
You're so disgusting. I don't even want to call you anymore. Before I hang up on you for the last time, I'll tell you 2 things. First, I've already hired a lawyer to help me with the legal procedures to charge you the alimony you damn well owe me. And second, you be sure to tell that wife of your brother's, butt naked in the nearest room, I'm done. Don't contact me again. I hung up the phone without hearing his answer. Logan also successfully talked to his wife and settled a divorce before hanging up the phone. All the while, my parent-in-laws were on the phone, talking to a well-respected lawyer's firm, explaining the situation to them, and asking for their services. They were happy to help us out with handling the divorce, and as for the alimony itself, we personally told them what we were hoping to get. They assured us that everything was going to be done accordingly. After that, Vin felt isolated in his job when he talked about how he divorced his wife by having an affair with the wife of his own brother. Some of them were pretty upset about the whole situation, and went so far as to send me letters of empathy and condolences. From my ex-husband's perspective, it was beyond strange for some woman to divorce him over something as small as having a little fun with his brother's wife. But, considering the situation from an objective perspective, common sense alone should tell you that it's wrong to cheat on your wife. Not only did he break that unspoken rule, but if even went so far as to drag your own brother's wife down with you into a pit of nightmarish misery. Perhaps people around him actively started to avoid him, and perhaps it became harder for Vin to stay at his job because he was fired from his job after repeatedly going AWOL. Logan's wife, who was a full-time housewife, had to work to pay the alimony charged against her, but because she had never worked before, she was never good at her job. She couldn't stand being scolded and criticized at her newest job anymore, and she quit. She then struggled to find regular, stable job thereafter, and instead took the easier, more riddled with dark consequence course of action by borrowing money from a bank to pay the alimony, placing herself in a large amount of debt. Nowadays, she's somehow managing to keep a budget by working as a part-time laborer. It also seemed like my ex-husband and his girlfriend got married later on. But they both had lots of debt to pay off. They got increasingly frustrated and things didn't work out. They divorced after 6 months. All they had left was a whole lot of debt and a whole lot of loneliness. Now, both are struggling to make ends meet with loads of work, day and night. As for me, I thought the divorce would make me depressed for a while, but surprisingly, it didn't. My coworkers worried about me because I was so calm about it, and some have said that they genuinely thought I'd lost my sanity. My relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Windsor and Logan remained on great terms, and to this day, I occasionally have dinner with them. Sometimes I dine with Logan privately. We joke to each other, saying that if we found someone nice, that we'll introduce them to each other. But I really don't think either one of us is ready for something like that just yet. And before you get ahead of yourself, no, I don't think Logan and I will ever become a thing. But who knows? Maybe life will prove me wrong, or maybe it won't. In any case, as of now, I'm concentrating on my work, hoping to get a promotion soon, and I'm going to do the best I can to live a life I believe I deserve.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread. hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.